But on top of the iPhone XR's back, you do have that single camera setup, which we'll go ahead and hit on right now. It has a single 12 megapixel sensor, and actually, it's a pretty good single camera setup. At that time, I went ahead and compared it to pretty much every single iPhone and any other phone for the matter that I actually had at that time. And for the most part, it was a really good, compelling camera for sure. Compared to pretty much every single iPhone that I had at the time, the camera was actually much better than the other ones. It just kind of sucked because it didn't have an extra sensor. It didn't have that telephoto or ultra wide sensor that the newer iPhones had or the XS had with the telephoto lens. But I still think for a lot of things that you would do, it's okay for the most part. You know what I mean? In terms of the single camera, it's really not that big of a deal, but the quality of the single camera is still really good. You still have basically almost all the features that the newer iPhones have on this specific back camera, which I think is awesome. You can do 4K at 60 as well, which is another huge improvement. I think that in and of itself is still something that future-proofs this iPhone when you consider the fact that the 12 Pro, the 12 Pro Max still can only do 4K at 60. I think that makes this phone feel that much, still up to date for the most part. However, the front camera may be a little bit more of a problem. So it's a single 7 megapixel camera as well. Now, I think the bigger problem with this is that you can only do 1080p at 60 frames, which I think 60 frames at 1080p is still really good. And I actually do think the front camera of this phone is still extremely good for the most part. But because we now have, like 4K at 60 and all these other frame rates that we can film in, that really does kind of take a toll on this specific camera. So it's definitely not a bad camera by any means, but because we are in this phase of getting 4K at 60 consistently on like every single iPhone camera, but most other phones that have been coming out besides like OnePlus and some Xiaomi phones, it really doesn't make this phone feel that much older. As much as I hate to say it, that does kind of seem to be the case. So the back camera is still like a 9 out of 10. The front camera is more like a 6.5 out of 10 in today's standard. So that really pretty much covers it up in the camera standpoint. Now stop.